Hello, my name is Rufus Johnson. I'm the Executive Chief Officer of the Realtruthinc, which stands for the Reality, Education, Attitudes, and Lifestyles of Inner City Youth. And I am the host of What Is Your Business? It's a new program that I actually, as a component to all the rest of my program, inserted. And I want to basically just talk about what's happening in Cincinnati and just as well nationally in violence. And this is my first show, and for my first show I have my first guest. I love this lady, you know, for all her work she has been doing, and I had an opportunity in meeting her in previous meetings and meeting her at her retreat. Mrs. Now let me correct that, Dr. Jennifer Williams. And Dr. Jennifer Williams is the Executive Director of Out of the CrossFire program. How you been doing?
I am blessed, Mr. Johnson, and glad to be here.
Can you tell me how Out of the CrossFire got started?
Yes. We are just about 2 years old. We opened our doors in August of 2006. Dr. J. Joe Hannickman, Chief of Trauma Surgery at University Hospital, and Dr. Kenneth Davis Jr., who is Associate Chief of Trauma Surgery, early in the 2000s became increasingly tired of patching up young, promising bodies with gunshot injuries and then sending them out into the same communities with the same attitudes, only to have them come back again 2 to 3 months later, maybe with a similar or worse injury. So they said, somebody's got to do something. And they started looking around to see what other communities were doing to address this, what we call the cycle of violence.
Okay.
And found a program closely matching what we're doing now in Baltimore, Maryland. Dr. Carnell Cooper, and he is Chief of Trauma Surgery there. He's got a program that's been going on for over 12 years, and they were very generous with all of their lived experience, etc., so we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. So Dr. Davis and Dr. J came back to Cincinnati very excited, put together a presentation, and
wow.
Anybody who would listen, they shopped it to and showed it to them. And everybody without exception said, that's a great job, go for it, attaboy, good job. But we don't have any money. And they heard that sad refrain until early 2006. The Cincinnati Bar Foundation said, we will provide you at least with some seed money so that you can open your doors. And so they hired me with the money, and my job was to pull together a program where we do go to a survivor of any violent injury, mostly gunshot wounds, but some stab wounds as well. We'll go to their bedside as soon as they're medically stable and able to consent, and offer them alternatives to violence and retaliation, and alternatives to the high-risk lifestyle that may have been a part of them being injured in the first place. So that's really how we got started. And we'll have our second birthday in a couple of months, August 21st.
Okay, I would definitely be there. Now, with all the violence going on in the community, gun violence, gang violence, you know, I think violence can be represented just only on a collective whole, not just only just so much that's saying, because you have all kind of type of different violence. You have mentally violence, you have verbal abuse violence. Can you tell me how is violence impacting our community?
Absolutely. Just this past weekend, we had 14 gunshot shot wounds that were treated at University Hospital, and we're early in the summer. So the violence is hurting us, not only our best and brightest, the potential of our future is being affected when we're having people maimed for life, etc. It's impacting the public safety and the perception of public safety in our community, where people who just want to be citizens and go to work aren't feeling safe. Bullets don't discriminate. They don't have eyes, so they'll hit whoever. And a lot of the people doing the shooting aren't that skilled a marksman, so they're not real accurate. The community itself and the economic infrastructure is being impacted. People who don't perceive that this is a safe place aren't so willing to send their children to, say, University of Cincinnati, which is one of the top education institutions in the country, Research One institution. We are the home of Procter & Gamble, world headquarters here, one of the best companies of consumer goods in the world. And they often have trouble attracting the best and the brightest because, among other things, people don't perceive this to be a safe place. University Hospital is one of the number one teaching hospitals in the country. And again, attracting medical students there, people who will be willing to relocate here to learn with the great teachers we have, often have second thoughts because of the violence. So it's impacting us in many ways. And we won't even get into right now the cost of treating people. 80% of the clients that I work with are uninsured and unemployed, but they still, if they make it to the hospital, somebody's got to pay for that, and it can be very expensive. So those are our tax dollars at work. So it's impacting us on many, many levels.
So, is it safe to say in the summertime that the violence escalate more than, or just a ongoing thing, or how do you keep your statistics, or how you keep, you know, numbers of when you having an impact? I know you also brought a guest, we'll get to him in a few minutes, on how does that work when one comes into the trauma department, I guess is what it is. How does that work?
Well, University Hospital and its trauma center is a level 1 trauma center, meaning the most serious injuries come there from a 50-mile radius of Cincinnati. So they'll fly them in with helicopters, however, they got serious injuries. And when they get there, no matter what their means to pay is, we have to treat them and treat them well. And so that's how they become clients of mine. If they survive that and they're admitted to the hospital, as I said, once they're medically stable, I'll go to their bedside right away. We have a trauma registry where we got a department that does nothing but keep statistics and records of who comes in, record of who's been a repeat person before in the system, etc. So we have quite a good idea of who's coming, what their age demographics are, the neighborhoods. We've counted out what are the top 10 neighborhoods for violence and gunshot wounds, etc. So the hospital has all of that together, and I use that now, that data, in out of the CrossFire, so we can keep track of who we're serving, what their needs are, and these recidivists, those who are second or third kind of repeat customers, we really want to focus on, because it's a matter of life and death, and they're playing Russian roulette with their lives, coming back repeatedly.
Okay, now what about if a person don't have insurance? How does that work?
Well, as I said, 80% of them do not have insurance. They don't have jobs. They don't have high school educations. And when they come there, we have to treat them anyway. So again, our tax dollars at work, because it's got to be paid for by some kind of way. The tax levy often pays for some of the people who aren't able to pay, call it indigent or self-pay. And a lot of times debt just gets written off because people don't have the ability to pay, even though they are classified self-pay, meaning they're responsible for the debt. But you have $100,000, $100,000, $1 million sometimes in services, and you don't have a job, there's no way you could pay that.
What about the age range?
We have clients as young as 14, 15 years old, and the eldest client that I've served was 75. So again, bullets don't discriminate, and people often wonder why, with Children's Hospital next door, why do we get children young, under 18? There's a couple of reasons for that. Again, University Hospital takes on the most serious injuries, and often when the ambulance drivers, the EMTs, bring them in, just by looking at them, they don't know whether they're adult or not, just the circumstances they find them in or their appearance. And oftentimes they do know, but because of the circumstances, they're in adult situations, etc., they bring them to University Hospital instead of putting them in a bed next to a more typically developing child at Children's. So one of the rule of thumbs we use is if they have facial hair or pubic hair, they come to University Hospital.
Okay. I want to get over to your guest, Mr. Epps. Mr. Epps is one of your clients, and I want you to be able to, bring him in to address, who and what and how he came a part of, out of the CrossFire. Okay. I'm gonna let you do the intro for him.
All right. It was a pleasure. I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Epps in 2006 when he was one of our first clients, as a matter of fact. And Mr. Epps has worked with us, although he'll tell you I wasn't the most favorite person for him to see at the beginning. He had a serious injury and he really wasn't feeling out of the CrossFire or anything else. He can tell the story a lot better, but during that time he has really began to participate and has become one of our strongest supporters, and in fact mentoring other clients, younger guys, and helping them to see that there is a different way to solve problems, etc. And he is now a member of our board representing other clients. So I am just so thrilled to have him here with us today. And Mr. Epps, he will tell his own story much better than I ever could.
I'm more thrilled to have you. This is my second time we've met again. Now we're here, and I just want you just to be able to tell your story and your side of violence that you have witnessed, and so the community can get a brace on, violence do not discriminate. no race, color, whatever, you know. So, Mr. Epps, tell your story, please.
Well, I first came in out of the CrossFire. Dr. Williams was really insistent, really persistent about being there. Every time I came to, she was standing there. And she explained to me what the program was. And from what she was explaining to me, I didn't think met my requirements to go to the program, because it was to turn the shooter's life around. Or if you were in that type of situation, to put yourself in harm's way. So I'm thinking to myself, this is not a program for me, because I've never thought about shooting anybody. All I've ever done was work. I was a victim of crime. So that program couldn't possibly have any impact, on me. But with her persistence, I went to the meetings. I got to hear from the person on the other side of the gun. And it made me think, am I the only one that's in my situation that was really a victim instead of a retaliation or a robbery, or a victim of a loose bullet? After talking to Dr. Jennifer, she came up with, it would be most thrilling for me to be there to tell my story, because not every black on black crime has to do with drugs, retaliation. Mine was just my case. Upon arriving home one night after work, I was robbed by 4 teenagers. All 4 of them had guns. I was made to get down on my knees while they went through my pockets to get $12, cell phone, a pack of cigarettes, and a lighter. I'm here to tell you, when you've done nothing to hurt anybody, to be put in that type of situation is the worst fear any man on this earth should be the last thing he has to feel. After being kicked in the face, my wife heard us outside, and she called out, "What's going on out there?" At this point, I had a choice to make. With 2 guns in the back of my head and 2 guns in front of me. Do I let her come to the door and them thinking she has something and they shoot her? Or do they think about gaining access to my house, to my wife, to my son? My choice was not to let that happen. So upon trying to push up and run, I only had 12 steps to run up to my porch. By the time I pushed up and ran and got to my door, shots rang out. I got hit with 1 single bullet. It went in my side and came out the other side. That 1 bullet hit every major organ it takes for a man to live.